Hello, everyone. Welcome to another American TESOL Institute webinar. My name is Jason R. Levine. I'm better known as Fluency MC, the teacher trainer, grammar explainer, high stress drainer. We have another great topic this week from the American TESOL Institute, enhancing Oracy and SEL in ELT. SEL is social emotional learning. And before we get into it, let me just say hello to you if you're here live. We're not going to use cameras and microphones, but at the end, we can have a question and answer session, absolutely, if you like. If you're watching this asynchronously, hello to you too. Thank you very much for being here. And please, either way, share the recording with people who you think, colleagues you have, people you know who'd be interested. These webinars are aimed at teachers with just getting started, all the way through to old folks like me. I've been teaching for 26 years now, yeah, we can always learn more, and we can always help others learn too. So yeah, welcome, and yeah, let's get started. So as I said, the acronym here as SEL or SEL, social emotional learning. Oracy, you may not have heard before. It's a great topic that's overlooked. Anyway, I won't keep talking about it so much as just to mention this is the title, and I think we know ELT is English language teaching. So here we go. So let's define our terms. Social and emotional learning. The best way, I think, is with a picture. And two pictures here to help us. So the picture on the left looks like, at first glance, show and tell, whereas it looks like the student is probably talking about something she brought to school. Let's just imagine that's what it is. This kind of teaching and learning has been used forever, since the beginning of any kind of classroom activity, I would imagine, for young learners. But the picture on the right is something more recent, and the reason I put them together is that I remember, when I say recent, the picture on the right is not that recent, right? I remember when there was a big push, not against something like show and tell, but definitely a push towards getting kids to focus more on using technology, but also this idea of developing critical thinking skills, where the picture on the left, the show and tell, I think is more social emotional side of things. So again, not that we want to get rid of that, but that, in this new age, this new world of technology, it's more and more important for learners to develop higher order thinking skills, critical thinking skills. And this, of course, is not limited to learning English as a second language. I think this is more talked about in just education generally, but also in the field of English language teaching. And I'll explain with my own personal story how this started to happen. So before I get into the story, though, I want to put this out there. So whereas in the past I was told and started to believe that in the future higher order thinking skills would be more important, and not that they weren't, but that today I'm going to put forth this idea that higher order social skills will be valued more than higher order thinking skills, even now in certain respects, but not so much as I think is going to happen in the future. And the near future seems to be nearer every day than we think, with artificial intelligence. And anyway, I'm going to get into that. But first, my story. So I was in New York City area, the metropolitan area, New Jersey and Brooklyn, teaching students, international students from countries all over the world who came to New York. And the idea at the time was not to focus just on the students, interpersonal communication and social skills. It was kind of taken for granted that, they had that or they could do that themselves, that we need to develop their critical thinking skills, their higher order thinking skills. But there was a big problem with this. Critical thinking can develop how? Is it just something we can just do in class? So I want you to think yourself, what is critical thinking? And I'll give you, there are many different ways of thinking about critical thinking, different definitions. So I chose this, but I want you to think about it yourself. The ability to question, analyze, interpret, evaluate, and make judgments about what you read, hear, say, or write. So in other words, the idea with the students coming from Japan, from Turkey, from Argentina, was that we're going to get them to do this in the classroom. However, basic understanding of how learning works, and here's a very basic way of looking at it, Bloom's taxonomy, is that in order to build higher order thinking skills, there needs to be a foundation of understanding concepts and remembering things. And the students that I had in New York, in my example, and I think they're representative of so many students and not just international students, their experience learning English was more grammar translation and traditional ways. So they didn't have a basic foundation of language collocations mainly, right? To be able to, functional language, to be able to build critical thinking on top of that. So I decided, okay, I agree that we need critical thinking. My students can't remember irregular verbs. They don't know how to, ask for things, basic things. And I know that there's no way we're going to be able to get them up there without somehow getting this language in their head. So I started to make songs. So if you know who Fluency MC is, that's the main thing I do, among other things. And it helped. So in the classroom, if we're testing higher order thinking skills, not testing, just trying to, nurture it and make it happen, it might be something like, okay, what do you think about immigration in your country versus immigration in the United States? Okay, well, that's critical thinking. And to do that, you need that fundamental base of language, which I explained I tried to do with raps and other things, and I'm going to get into that more later. But we weren't thinking so much about the social skills. And the reason I think higher order social skills are going to be valued more in the future, and maybe you've already guessed this or can imagine, it has to do a lot with artificial intelligence. Not that we won't want to think critically, but that we will have the ability with AI to get answers to questions with critical thinking a lot more easily than in the past, where we had to do most of that work. So not that we just ask ChatGPT to, spit out an answer through critical thinking. But one thing we know, I think, or I believe, is that with more AI, the idea of how humans interact with each other, their social skills will become more important, because if it's sort of like with the internet, how it changed education, a teacher no longer, is the one with the answers. The internet's out there with the answers too. And here again with AI, it's not just people who can think more critically. It's artificial intelligence who can help us with that. But will it help us with our social skills? Maybe one day, but I think human social skills are going to be so much more important. So I started looking at higher order thinking skills on the internet compared to higher order social skills. So higher order thinking, there's all kinds of stuff. You can see Bloom's taxonomy here on the right. And asking ChatGPT about it. There's even an acronym, HOTS. Lots of stuff about higher order thinking skills. And I'm going to be zooming through these so we have time to really talk about stuff. Well, I'm going to be talking and you're going to be asking later if you like. But anyway, in our discussion, I'm happy to share this PowerPoint as always, these slides. I'll give my email at the end, but I'll say it now and maybe again, it's support@fluencyMC.com. So you see Fluency MC here on the slide. Just remember support@fluencymc.com. But when I went on the internet for higher order social skills, there's practically nothing. I think the first thing here has to do with, or one of these has to do with like antisocial behavior. I think this one, social skills, is a very superficial thing anyway. There were just very, very little. So I thought, let's go back to ChatGPT. Well, it gave me an acronym, which surprised me because I didn't see that online. But I liked the examples. But maybe if you use ChatGPT, it likes to act like an authority when it's not always an authority. It doesn't mean what it says is bad, but it kind of, announces the stuff. So I said, do I have the slide here? No, I don't. I said, sorry, to ChatGPT, it really is HAS, an acronym. And this is what it said. It said it isn't an officially established label. And it said, see, and this is interesting, right? It's usually referred to as things like cell. So here's what I'm talking about with you today. But then, again, I'll share this with you later, but I'm laughing. It's just, I love these conversations. Then I said, did you make it up or something? Oh, it seems like I might just have coined it. Well, I like it, Haas, and I'm using it. So I went a little further, higher thinking skills, asking ChatGPT to give me the difference. And I think this is really useful. It's not that in the future we won't need to process and manipulate information. It's that AI will be there to help us more with that. But how we understand, interpret, and respond to people in social situations, that I think is going to be so, so important. And that's the reason for this topic today about social emotional learning and Oracy, which I'm going to bring in shortly. So maybe in the future, I'll call it, HAS, but I chose social emotional learning because that's a recognized term and HAS is not. So this is where I am with my favorite ways of thinking about HOTS and HAS. So here's higher order thinking skills. I'll let you read that. And then I don't think I'm the only one to want to categorize like higher order social skills, but I know Haas is made up, unless somebody can show me, by ChatGPT. So we're going to be moving away from HOTS now into this. Lots of stuff out there in developing critical thinking skills. I want to talk about what you can do to develop higher order social skills, and especially this idea of Oracy. So for me, Oracy is, let me go back to that slide. I think I should have explained something before we got into it. Yeah, so what I have here, sorry, that's important as a way to go into Oracy is, social emotional learning doesn't talk as much about communication as I want to talk about with Oracy. So, and second language learning especially. So having a deep understanding of emotions, definitely sell, but effective communication, empathy and conflict resolution. Let's start thinking about what that means in terms of someone learning a second language, or English as a foreign language or second language, because we're going to be obviously looking just at that piece in education. So my idea is that social emotional development and Oracy are included together. And I know I haven't defined Oracy. It's coming. But for now, purple here is SEL, S-E-L, social emotional learning, and orange, I'll just go back to the slides so you can see, orange is Oracy. So Oracy, you see, is the focus more on the communication side. And just to show you, in newish books, more recent stuff, you see SEL and Oracy more and more. This is from a Richmond book. I can't remember the name of it, and that's okay because I'm not here to plug it. But it's for young learners. So what is Oracy? We've talked about what SEL is. We're not there yet, sorry. Just this is also from the book, so you can see where there's a focus. Now, social emotional learning, when you look at it, you might think, well, if I teach young learners, of course, I'm always going to be doing this. You don't need a separate lesson on social emotional learning. And that's absolutely true. And it's true with Oracy too, when we get to that. So it's not necessarily that you need a separate lesson, but that you are bringing SEL into the lessons. So this is not, for example, anything separate from, it's in a unit. It's more like, okay, now let's focus directly on something to promote social emotional learning. So in a way, we're back to where we started because I wanted to talk about what SEL is and then went into something broader where I'm connecting it with Oracy and this idea of higher order social skills. But you see here, there's not as much emphasis on, there's really no direct emphasis on communication necessarily. Although we know communication is important here. It's the Oracy, finally, that focuses specifically on speech. And I put two different, these are actually two different definitions, and it really needs to be, they need to go together, I think. It's about expressing yourself, this is the fluency side, but also the accuracy side. And this is, I'm going to make sure to not go think about this too generally. We're talking about English language teaching. So this is true in first language use, any language use, but when we talk about English language teaching for speakers of English as a foreign language or second language, then the idea of fluency, the idea of accuracy becomes much, much more important. So I'm often asked, because my name is Fluency MC, what is fluency? And this is my credo that I follow, that practice, and I'm going to talk about that with Oracy, repetition with language, getting comfortable with the language builds accuracy. People understand you more, you understand them more. That accuracy is directly related to fluency in this way, because it's the confidence that comes from having more accurate language. Doesn't mean perfect English, but your learners speak more accurately, understand more accurately, that then they feel the confidence they need to express themselves and then start to feel more comfortable. And that is fluency. So here's a little bit of Oracy for you. English learners everywhere, don't ever forget, the more you practice, the better you get. The better you get, the further you go. Just relax and repeat and you'll find your flow. So practice, right? To me, that's the Oracy I want to talk about. Practice with the language to feel comfortable, confident, and become fluent. Here's a quote from Dave Dodgson, who I've never met in person, but I've hosted a couple webinars and read a lot of what he's written about, and I love this. It's from Why Oracy Matters for Language Learners. If you want to find the article, I'll read it out loud while you read it. While literacy and numeracy are placed at the fore in general education settings, oracy is often forgotten. I love that because, yeah, we do have literacy, numeracy. Oh, oracy. There's an assumption that talk will just happen. Learners need time, direction, and support in order to talk effectively and meaningfully. So this is like asking students, okay, what do you think of immigration in your country compared to the United States? This is what I mentioned earlier. You know, just talk about it. But how can you talk about it if you don't have the functional language, the foundation to talk about it? So that oracy is important to build critical thinking skills, but what I'm going to focus on is how oracy is important to build social emotional skills as well. So functional language, if you've been teaching for a while, I'm sure you are familiar with it, even if you don't call it functional language, sentence stems or, you know, whatever, but for different situations, right? So here we've got talking about an article. That's where I took this from. I have lots of functional language banks, right? You know, summarizing the article, what's important, expressing opinion is also here. So this is what we're talking about when we're talking about oracy in second language learning, or I think, you know, people like Dave Dodgson, myself, and others. What's really important is this idea of functional language that gets enough, you get enough practice with that you can become more fluent. So here's an example of something you could do, and where I'm bringing social emotional learning and oracy together. So if up to this point you thought you've needed an example of something in a lesson, and it wasn't clear, I'm sorry, but I hope now it'll be clear and you can go back and look at what I was saying earlier. So this is something I've done before. I call it emotion cards. I'm sure other people have done something like this, where you teach emotion adjectives. And the reason I have two different colors here, blue and green, you'll see in a moment, is because I'm thinking about their level, also their age. Go back to the slide before, I keep going too quickly. I put here young learners and adolescents. So the emotion adjectives, you could decide which ones to teach based on their age and or their level. So happy, sad, worried, jealous is, you know, that could be A2 up through maybe B1, but then others could be, you could choose other more complicated emotions, depends what your students know, obviously. And then if you see I'm sneaking in the grammar without talking about it, which I think is the best way often, in the book and on the syllabus, there may be students need to know conditionals. But anyway, how do you feel if your friend does something? So the present real conditional. If my friend, I feel happy, sad, worried, jealous, for example. And I'm not going to get into how you teach this language here, but there are, of course, many ways. I'll just mention, right? It could be just up on the board. It might be in your book. It might be something they already basically know. So you say, okay, we're going to do an activity, and you're going to need sentences like this. But then if you look at can I correct this in real time? It's been corrected. Conditional, this is present unreal. How would you feel if your friend, if my friend, I would feel or I'd feel, right? If we want to teach the contraction. So what do you do with this language? So I said it's emotion cards. We're going to get to the cards, but first an example. And I strongly suggest putting in sentence stress. Sometimes word stress also. I'll show you that in a moment. Here I'm just doing sentence stress. So how do you feel if your friend cries? So depending on their age and level, you're going to want to do some repetitive practice, some drilling here to make sure they feel comfortable before they start the activity. So if my friend cries, I feel sad. How would you feel if your friend lost her phone? If my friend lost her phone, I'd feel worried. And there should be a period on worried. Should I fix that too? Okay, I'll do that later. That's a good example. You can see the cell here, the social emotional development. We're talking about, sympathy, empathy, relating to your friends' issues, and it doesn't have to be just friends. So, as you can see here, so then make cards with questions on them. How would you feel if your teacher arrived late? So this is the present unreal. So we're imagining a little higher level, maybe B1 into B2, and adolescence here with stealing. And then create games to play using the cards. Not going to get into that. ChatGPT, by the way, is a great place to go when you're at this point, which is something you can do and why I'm not going to explain it. You could give ChatGPT this activity, try that if you like it, and say, what would be some games that my students can play if I make cards with these questions? So try that. That's a great time saver. What about adolescents and adults? So that first one was children, adolescents, and now adolescents, adults. There's kind of like a Venn diagram here thing for adolescents. Conflict scenarios. Something else I like doing. I'm sure there are many variations out there. And I'm trying to choose things that are really easy for you to do. So present small groups with fictional interpersonal conflicts. You've got a noisy roommate, an unfair teacher. And then here, functional language for expressing opinions, agreeing, disagreeing, and negotiating. Here again with the sentence stress. One thing we could do is, do you really think that's the best solution? I think the best idea is, then what? Sorry, let me go back. So they've got because I'm getting confused, maybe you're okay. So each group, let's say there's 3 people in a group, you've got a functional scenario that's different for each group. Sorry, fictional scenario, getting my fictional functional, right? So then the idea is the groups use the language either on the board or wherever it is, maybe in the book too, or you've got lists of, you've agree, disagree, this is what I do, so they can kind of go into a bank, a word bank, a functional language bank, and find things they want to practice, have them use that, and then have them write it up. And the reason writing it up, like making kind of a script, and you can help them with grammar and come around to the groups, is that then they're more likely to be more accurate with it, and sharing with the class not just their solutions, but even first their scenarios. So they got to explain the fictional conflict that they were given, and then use their notes. So they got their solutions. You could share with the class. You could mix the groups up. I don't know if you've ever done that. It's really cool. If you've got a group of 3, right? They are A, B, C. You got the next group A, B, C, A, B, C. You put the A's together, the B's together, and the C's together, and then they have to explain to one another what their group did. And then they could also present it to the class. Works really well. You could also have them think of real situations they're in. That could get a little, sensitive. I don't know. But if you've got a good rapport in your class, small enough group, maybe they would, and then you're really getting into social emotional learning because it's real situations. But I hope you see the Oracy side of this, right? For second language learners, the functional language, the grammar focus, the way of getting practice with the pronunciation, the stress, in order to succeed in the activity. Now, Oracy is not a big thing online, and here's proof. When I searched Oracy activities, I got, things like this: show and tell, right? Back to the first slide. So, if a student is doing show and tell, definitely could be oracy, just in the fact that they're speaking. But again, for second language learning, without focusing enough on functional language and getting repetition in it, I don't think it works so well. So speaking of repetition, reciting rhymes and songs. Ooh, that was on this list I found. Thought that's interesting because that's what I do. So I looked and saw further the activity for this. And this is what I often see. And what I think is much better based on this, but what's better is you can write your own song. And this is a moment where you might be thinking, but I can't write a song. Well, I'm going to show you how you can do it, and it's not so difficult. And then I'm going to give you my pitch on why or how songs can be much, much better to develop oracy than basically any other activity, although I like the activities I showed you and their games and other things. So write down the functional language, grammar structures, and collocations you wish to practice. I'll show you an example in a moment. And use this to create a language bank. I've referred a couple times to functional language banks. So in this case, I went to a book. This is the same book as before. Again, it's Richmond, but I don't remember what it's called right now. And the reason I decided to do this is because many of you, I imagine, are or will be working with books and either don't have the option to use other materials, or you're not far enough in your teaching to well, the best way to say is you still want to use books too because it can help you, or you don't have the time, etc. So this is great because this is a functional language that's already there in the book. But how do we get this functional language in the student's head? Is a role play enough? So this is a role play here. We've got the patient and the doctor. We've got these gaps. So I took that and started thinking about, okay, what are the functions? So we've got the doctor's functions and we've got the patient's functions. And I chose this because clearly this is social emotional learning. These functions, when we're asking someone about a problem, we're showing sympathy, we're giving advice. So this is social emotional learning with practice with the functional language to develop oracy. But what do you do with it? So here it is in the traditional way of kind of a dialogue, right? And students can develop this, or you can develop it, or it may already be in the book. It was in this book, but I kind of made it better and connected it more to my activity, which you know is going to be create a chant and a song. But basically, this is all from this unit. So we've got now a dialogue that makes sense, and it's highly functional language there. But how do you get it in the students' heads? Well, it's easier than you think. First, can we find any rhymes for words in those sentences? Rhyming dictionary can help you. I'll show you that in a moment. And ChatGPT, Gen AI, a large language model. You can plug those sentences in and say, hey, give me a chant, give me a song. You don't have to create it. Now, creating it yourself, if you don't have the time or you don't feel like doing it, makes sense. You might want to not use ChatGPT because you want your students to find rhymes. So that depends. But you can also use ChatGPT and have students use it and then critique it. Anyway, more on this I'll explain as we go forward. Near rhymes are fine. That's my little play on words. Near rhymes are fine. You don't always need to rhyme. Oh, fine rhyme are not perfect rhymes. But rhyming dictionaries, guys, Rhyme Zone, this is amazing. for you to use, but also your students can do. Everything I'm talking about now could be you or and or your students. So rest. Doctor says you need some rest. Oh, maybe stressed, best. And how cool is this for the side of Oracy with sound spelling relationships and the stress and hear the sound, which is in many languages, this letter, and that can be confusing. So this is what I came up with when I prepared this activity. The words in red are words that were in that dialogue. You can just go back and see. So you can see the near rhymes. Cold, we've got hold, sold, but also goal. And then look at this, throat, coat, note, go, no. We've got a long O sound that's here with cold. So all of these could go together very nicely, especially the long vowels. If the long vowel is the same, it sounds good as a rhyme, even though it's not a perfect rhyme. Don't start with a blank page. Do start with a blank page. Don't start thinking that you need to write a song on a blank page. Start with a blank page, but write one bar, and that comes from your language bank. If you feel inspired to keep going, keep going. Mark the word stress and sentence stress. We've only been talking about sentence stress. I'll show you word stress in a moment. You can use a dictionary, but Jen, AI can help you. So if you're not sure where to put the stress, you saw that in the activity I had before, ask ChatGPT. It knows so well where stress is naturally. This is what it's so good at. Factual information, not always so much, right? Privacy, data concerns. These are all genuine concerns we have about AI. But Gen AI for language, this is where it really shines. So when I say one bar, this is what I mean. Here it is without the stress, and here it is with the stress. So I have here, as you see for the first time, the word stress, not just hello is stressed, but hello. So hello, what's wrong? The pain is so strong. So there's the doctor and the patient, one bar. Then here's two bars. Doctor, I don't feel good. What's the matter? What's wrong? My head really hurts. The pain is so strong. Now, writing a complete song, which I'm going to show you in a moment, is something that I can do more quickly than most people, because that's one of the main thing I do for a living. That's my job, is writing songs. But you or your students can do it too. Start small. All right, don't think about the whole song yet. And maybe you'll get a whole song, maybe you'll get something, very short, more of a chant. So here's what I came up with. And you're welcome to use this. And I'm not sure how the sound is going to be. I did share my sound. Let me just look for a second, make sure my sound shares. And let's try it. Let's see if sometimes Zoom, the quality is good, sometimes it doesn't. If you want to do it with me, you can. Here we go. All right. It goes like this, guys. Check it out. Doctor, I don't feel good. What's the matter? What's wrong? My head really hurts. Pain is so strong. Sorry to hear that. Is there anything else? Yes, I have a sore throat. That's too bad you have a cold. What should I do? Get some rest and you can take this medicine. Thank you, doctor, you're the best. Ooh, we can also do it and make it a little bigger, a little longer for either a little bit older learners, or in this case, probably more just their level is higher. So you can see here now, but all of this language, guys, if you go back to the dialogue before, it's all there. Put a couple things in here, but you're not starting, when I say don't start with a blank page, and I got confused, but I mean, you're starting with a language bank. You've got things. In that sense, you're not starting with a blank page. Of course, if you have, I need to write a song about, a patient and a doctor. No, you've got this in a book, or you've got this in your lesson plans, right? So this is a way, either with your students doing it or you doing it. If your students are doing it, it's all kinds of advantages about, them playing with the language and creating something, and that in itself is social emotional learning. But if you've got something, we'll look at what you can do with it. It's the oracy, right? It's the memory, the repetition, the accuracy that's building to get that functional language in learners' heads to build confidence, and so they can use it, not just see it in the book. So here we go. How can they practice it? Already started talking about it. Here we go. Well, you can do it with them. Students can do it in pairs. So you can say, well, I can do that with a role play. Yeah, but it's the rhyme and the rhythm and the natural inclination to repeat a song. We don't naturally repeat dialogue so much, except if we're going to do like a drama piece, and that's another great thing you can do. But I don't think the role plays for a drama, like acting them out, they're going to be as motivated to do. Maybe very little ones. But a song, different. We like to repeat songs. We naturally repeat songs. You could give them a challenge to do it in class, so they want to practice it. They could add more lines to the song. So if you wrote the song, and again, you could use ChatGPT to help you. Don't forget that. You don't have to be a songwriter. Teachers are facilitators. They're putting together things. So ChatGPT, if it helps you put something together, use it. But the students could add lines to the song. And if they use ChatGPT, they can adapt it, right? They're not going to want to use just what ChatGPT gave them. And now I'm going to talk to you about something that you may be thinking about, I imagine, which is, okay, that's great for young learners. What about adults? Adolescents, adults. So I gave you kind of two non-song activities earlier for both age groups. Can you do this activity, a song, with adolescents and adults? Absolutely. And you could, do something like we just saw, a dialogue, but like, more like the conflict resolution thing, which is something you could do, which would be cool. Taking what they did with the conflict resolution and making a song, for example, with that functional language. But I've got something else to tell you about, because I just did it with my TOEIC students. So if you're a test prep person, check this out. I have a big database of collocations from TOEIC. So I don't understand why these spaces came here. It looks weird, but there shouldn't be any spaces. These are just lists. This is the beginning of the adjective noun list and the verb noun collocation list. So this is where it all begins, I think, for us, right? We have lists, right? Whether it's irregular verbs, whether it's functional language, we've got vocabulary like this that we want students to remember, and students want to remember. And the chant, the songs with rhythm and rhyme, I've found to be the most effective, because a list like this, nice to be able to check something, but how are they going to get it up here? Moreover, how are they going to get the pronunciation up here, so that when they encounter it on the listening part of the TOEIC, for example, they can recognize it. So I'm showing you this because I did an activity recently with students where I asked them to look at the list. They're very familiar with my list, but how to find rhymes, like I showed you before. We did. Can they find rhymes? And in this case, the idea was, we have such a big list. Can you find rhymes just with the collocations themselves? And the added bonus here, of course, is that then they're also looking at not just the word forms. You see green is adjective, blue is noun, red is verb, but also, wow, there are a lot of nouns with the conversation, dedication from the verbs, the ATE verbs, right? Dedicate, renovate, investigate. So students came up with these. So this was a collaboration where I had the students try to find where rhymes from the lists, and this is a long list: adverb, adjective, collocations, noun, noun, compound noun, right? So I'm just showing you the adjective and verbs they came up with: choose housing, address overcrowding. And they'd also made mistakes because of their first language, was in this case French, thinking something rhymed. And we said near rhymes are fine, but if it's totally different, that's also an opportunity to say, you know what, that's not the same sound. And we made this rap. I made the chorus. Sorry, not the chorus. There isn't a chorus. There are these sort of three short verses to introduce each part. And if you're a TOEIC teacher or not, and you're interested in this rap, happy to send it to you. So it begins like this. And in this case, I did not mark the word stress, just the sentence stress. I think I have another version with the word stress, which is very important for them, my French students, to know its location, conversation. But anyway, this one just has the sentence stress. So I'm going to do this one a cappella for you. As you see, this is just the adjective noun part, and there's another 8 bars of adjective nouns. So really excited about this because it was a collaboration with students, because I think it is the first TOEIC vocabulary rap. I've also done them for TOEFL and Cambridge. I don't know, but it goes like this. Check it out. If you're learning English and need to take the TOEIC, then business vocabulary, it's essential to know it. The best way to go is to group words by sound. Now let's use adjectives to describe nouns. A short talk is a brief conversation. A serious commitment's complete dedication. Potential spots are possible locations. A major overhaul is an extensive renovation. Key moments in the past are historical events. When you know what you want, you have a clear preference. She made her money back. That's a successful investment. A picture showing proof is photographic evidence. So I only performed this song once, well, with 2 different classes. The one I did it with, and then another class. It was a lot of fun. So is this social emotional learning? The song itself? No. So not like the doctor-patient one where the functional English was very cell-focused, but the students working together to make the song. Whenever students work together to do anything, they're using social emotional learning. But this one is clearly more on the Oracy side of things, and actually just the pure building blocks, the vocabulary they need for the TOEIC. Happy to send that to you guys if you want. I wanted to show you this again. Just look at it, reflect on what we're talking about here on the Oracy side. But now reflect on it on the social emotional side, because they're both there, right? If they're confident because their Oracy is stronger, then that confidence builds fluency. They're more likely to engage, to talk, to express themselves. So we have, specific lessons or parts of lessons looking at things like, showing empathy, giving advice, like with the doctor-patient situation. But then there's also just, if a student feels more comfortable talking in English with you or a classmate or someone at their job. I always like to end with this: practice makes what? It's okay if you said perfect. In my opinion, it's okay if you're not thinking perfect, like I can't make a mistake. That's my problem with perfect. That's why I like progress. But if you're thinking perfect in the sense of acquiring the accuracy and having it here, that it stuck in your head, practice makes permanence. That's repetition is the practice. Meaningful repetition, whether it's a game, it's videos, it's a song, that I believe is the key. And as always, the most important of all, I hope you agree that what I showed you today, the ideas, would be activities that students would enjoy. If they're not enjoying it, do something else. Don't be afraid to ask AI to help you. I know I keep saying that, but it's not because AI is so amazing as an end-all thing, but because if you use it back and forth, it will help inspire you in many ways to think of how to, improve on something. So what we learn with pleasure, we never forget. And here's my email address. If you would like a PDF of what you just saw, those slides, I'm happy to send it to you. If you have questions, working with American TESOL Institute, I am happy to help any of you, all of you out there who see this, whether you are getting certified by American TESOL Institute, or you've been certified, or you're just interested in the professional development materials, including this, that ATI is providing. I'm here to help anytime. Okay, I'm happy to send it to you. Great, Kathy and John. Wonderful. Will this go to my email? I'm going to email you. Let me just copy this address because it just, hang on one moment. And then I'm going to get on and do a formal goodbye for the recording. But let me stop the share. What just happened with your address? Was I able to get it? No. Hang on. Let me copy that. Copy link. Okay, let me just put it in my email so I don't forget. Okay. Oh, okay. It's in an email message. So you'll get this right after we stop. Good. I'll make a PDF for you. All right. So let me do a formal sign off here. John and Kathy. Great. Okay. This brings us to the end of our webinar today. Thank you so much for joining me, Fluency MC, hosting for the American TESOL Institute. I'll be back next month around the same time, so check the lexical blog, the ATI American TESOL Institute blog, for the next webinar. I'll be happy to do it and see you next month. And in the meantime, as I said, please get in touch if you'd like the slides or you have a question. Have a great morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. English language teachers worldwide. Peace, respect, salute. Bye-bye.